Okay, so the first lesson is over slope lines, and then I'll show you how to use this calculator a little bit. Okay, so hopefully this first little slope formula looks familiar. That should be like embedded in your brain forever and ever. So slope is rise over run. So maybe this new notation right here, have you seen this before? Yeah, so a triangle in science, you see it a lot in science, just means change of. So anytime you're finding the change in two things, you're subtracting them. Okay, so change in y over change in x. Okay, so they give us a couple different representations. Okay, so for number one, they're showing the graph. So what is the slope for number one? Negative 4/3. Good. So you go down. So you would say negative, and then you run 3. So negative 4/3. Okay. For number two, how would we set this one up? Okay. Yep. So which y do you want to use first? So you did 0 minus 2. Negative 2 minus 4. Okay. So you got negative 2 over negative 6, which reduces. Good. Okay. So as we go, I'm going to start teaching you tricks of how to do well on this test, things that you have to do and things that you don't necessarily have to do, which is kind of like one of those things of on the AP test, you don't have to reduce. Okay, so what I'm saying is if you were on the AP test and you left your answer like this, they would give you that answer. Okay, now I will always reduce it because when you go to college, they'll make you reduce. So I'm going to teach both ways, but I just want you to understand, I want you to do well on the test. So taking time to simplify, well, that can be costly. And also, what if you make a mistake? You know, what if you accidentally go, oh, that was 1/2 and go, oops, you know, just reduce that incorrectly. Okay. So what about number 3? So did you go 2 minus 2 over 3 minus 2 and get 0 over 1, which makes 0. So if you have a slope of 0, what do you know? Horizontal line. Good. Okay, so for number 4, they're probably going to go this the opposite way. So the one thing I really like about this textbook is they do a good job of like making good examples. So there's always a point to every example. So they're not going to be redundant. It's important, like every example is teaching you something. So 2 minus 5 over 3 minus 3, what's happening here? Okay, over 0, and what happens? Vertical line. So what would you say is the slope? Vertical would be x equals, yeah. Yep. So how do we say the slope if it's dividing by 0? How do you say that? Huh? Well, if the other one was 0, and if you divide by 0, which is impossible, huh? NA, okay, that's close, not possible. So undefined would be fair. Okay, so you can write undefined with a 0 with a slash through it, or you can literally write the words undefined. NA, I think, would probably get you by. I would know what you meant. I don't know if a reader would. Okay, so do you remember parallel lines have equal slopes? So two lines that have the same slopes are going to be parallel. Perpendicular lines have, yeah, so negative reciprocals. So if they show you your example over here. So if one is 5/2, the reciprocal to 5/2 is 2/5, and then you just make it negative. So there's their example for that. Okay. Do you remember all the forms for linear equations? No? Okay, I think the one that it's most common, you've learned this one the most, is the slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, so what's the m? The slope, and the b is the y-intercept. And that only is in that scenario. That's only when it's in slope-intercept form. Okay, the second most important one, well, actually, probably the first most important for this class, when you're doing calculus, we're going to use that form the most. Okay, so often you'll be given a point, you'll find a slope, and you'll have to write the linear equation of that tangent line. So it's easiest to write it in point slope form. They throw in general form, so this is kind of interesting. In the past, you usually see it as like ax plus by equals c. In algebra, they teach it that way, but for some reason in this textbook, they decide general form is set equal to 0. So general form is set equal to 0, and a very important fact, it has to be written in integers. So what does that mean? Whole numbers. Okay, so you cannot write anything with a fraction. No fraction. So the only way for you to get rid of a fraction is to multiply the entire equation by whatever the common multiple is of the denominator. Okay, so that's important. That'll come back to haunt you. Wink, wink, wink. Okay. All right, so find the equation of the line that goes through the point 2, 3 and has a slope of -3. So this says just write the equation. It doesn't tell us what form. We got to write it in. So we can choose. So what form do you think would be the simplest? Good. Point slope. So if we just throw it in, it'll go y minus what? 3. Good. Equals -3 times the quantity x minus 2. Good. Okay, so we can write that any way we want if they don't tell us which way to do it. Okay, what about vertical line? So we just kind of talked about that. If I want a vertical line, how does it start? Which axis is it always going to go through if it's vertical? The x. So it'll always be x equals, so which x value are we crossing through? -1. Good, yep. So you're just basically just stealing that x value. Horizontal will just be the opposite, right? Okay. Number 7, so now we're going to do a line through a point, so -1, 2, and it's got to be parallel to the given equation, and we also have to write it in slope-intercept form. Okay, so anytime you see the word parallel, what should you immediately be thinking? Same slope. Good. So I'm going to start by trying to figure out the slope. So if I have 2x minus 5y equals 5, what's the slope? How do I figure that out? What's that? 2/5? How'd you figure that out so fast? Good. So you can just do that in your head? Fair enough. Okay, so the slope for this is 2/5. Good. Okay, so now I'm going to use the point, so I'll write that in blue. So if we have the point and we have the slope, where should we throw it into? Point slope. Good. So we'll go y minus 2 equals 2/5 times x plus 1. Good. Okay, so this would technically be an equation, but now we have to say, all right, fine, we got to throw this into slope-intercept form, so what do I got to do for that? Good. So get rid of parentheses, so 2/5 times x is 2/5 x. 2/5 times 1 is 2/5. And we're going to add 2. Okay, so if I add 2 to 2/5, we got to get a common denominator. So what is 2 the same as in terms of fifths? 10 fifths. So I'm going to add 10 fifths. So 2 fifths x plus 12 fifths. Good. Okay, so this one I can leave with fractions. That's okay. So naturally, where is it going to go? We're going straight to general form. So what do we know about general form? There's two pieces of general form that must be true. No fractions, good. And set equal to 0, good. Okay, so we're doing the same thing, but now we're going to do perpendicular. Is that the same equation? Nice. So we can distill our slope from before. So what will the perpendicular slope be? Negative 5/2, so negative reciprocal. Okay, so now we basically have to do the same thing we did in the blue, right? Okay, so we're going to say y minus 2 equals negative 5/2 x plus 1. Okay, so there's kind of two different ways at this point I can go about this. Okay, I can say, oh, I know that I'm going to have to get rid of fractions, and this has a fraction. So I can take care of that fraction first, or I can do it at the end. Which one do you guys want to do? I don't know. I think you got to be careful if you do it. Get rid of it first. So to get rid of a fraction, you have to multiply everything by the common denominator, right? Okay, so our denominator is 2, so we have to multiply everything by 2. So every term has to be multiplied by 2. Okay, so think of it like everything. Okay, so on the right side, you got to be careful because that is one term. So that 2 is just going to kill the bottom 2, and that's all that's going to get touched. So it'll just be negative 5 times x plus 1. Does that make sense to everybody with that order of operations? I think a lot of people would distribute that 2 through the x and the 1, and that would be too many 2's being distributed. Too many 2's. Okay, so what would you do from here? Good. We want to get rid of parentheses, and then remember we're going to general form, so then we're going to set it equal to 0. So we can pull it to the right side, we can pull it to the left side. Which one do you prefer? Okay, so we'll have 2y plus 5x if we add 5 to that, plus 1. So, I don't know, that's about as hard as it gets right there for this lesson. Okay, graphing. Okay, so two ways to graph. You can take this equation as is and do the cover method. When it's in standard form, do you guys remember the cover method? No? Okay, so cover method gives you your x and y intercepts. Okay, so if I cover something, essentially I'm turning that term to 0. So if I cover this, the y value is 0. So I'm going to find my x intercept over at the top. So I'll get an x intercept is 9 right? And then my y intercept is 7. So I can do it that way. I don't recognize math a lot. I just want to have to terrible to graph. So I can just go on the x-axis and move up this and like that. The other way is if you go like that, you can just solve for y and put it in the slope intercept. So which way would you prefer to do? Slope intercept? Is that what everybody's thinking? Yeah, you're pretty used to it. So subtract the 2x, right? And then divide by 3. So just make sure you divide everything by 3. So y-intercept is 3, and our slope is down to over 3. So you can kind of see where that 4.5 would have landed on that x-intercept. It's kind of off our grid, but would have worked. Okay, how do you graph y equals 2? What kind of line? A straight what? Horizontal, good. Gotta love those questions. Okay, so this is where we get to do the calculator. You guys ready for calculators? Is everybody's turn on? Step 1, can you turn your calculator on? Okay, so this is the way I'm going to teach you guys, and I'm going to say that if you know how to do this on the TI-84, then do it on the TI-84. So can you graph a function on the TI-84? Then I would do that, because if you have to relearn how to do something, it's not going to be as efficient. Also, I don't think it's any easier on the Inspires. So I'm going to do this one on the 84. Okay, I guess I have to type it over there. So negative 0.2 x cubed minus 2.2 x squared plus 1.6 x plus 1. Okay, so when you go to graph this, before you hit graph, you should mentally be kind of like, okay, what should this look like?
I've never understood how you did that last year, the year before. I don't understand how you did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that then. Okay.
Tell me what shape it was, and I can understand.
Okay, well, maybe Wilson can explain also. Okay, so what shape is this graph? It's a John Travolta, right? And specifically a John Travolta with his left arm, or his right arm down. Okay, so the biggest exponent, so x cubed, it's an x cubed function. So that's a John Travolta. Okay, so it's like this, but it's a negative, so that means it's flipped upside down.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Okay, so it looks like a parabola. It's clearly not a parabola. I just told you it was a John Travolta with his left arm down. So we're missing his right arm that's on the left side. Or I said that backwards. I guess his left arm. So we need to go to the left, and we also need to go down, because in order for you to graph a whole function, I need to see the whole John Travolta. Okay, so we need to go down and we need to go left. So if you go into your zoom, nope, sorry, window. I take that back. My bad. Go to window. Okay, so if I want to go left, which thing am I going to change? Okay, so negative, what do you think? I'm just making an educated guess here.
30.
Negative 30. Okay, we also need to go down. So how do we go down? Which thing is that going to affect? Good. So we're at negative 10. What do you think? Oops, I wrote 30, not negative. 40? Okay, don't do 30, do negative. Negative 40? Okay, let's see what it looks like. So are we going to see the whole John Travolta? Ooh, close. So we got to go lower than 40. What do you think? Should we just go 60? I feel like 60 is going to really, for surely get it. 50 feels like maybe. There we go. Okay, so we got to draw that on our window. Okay, so when you are asked to do this on the windows, you have to draw the scale. Okay, so when you do this, you can be like, okay, you basically are filling out that window that we just typed in. Okay, so we went from, what was it, negative 30 on the X to 10. And then on the Y, we were 10 to, I think I went negative 60. And then we just draw it to the best of our ability.
That's not drawing.
Okay, so then we're going to find the zeros. Okay, so how many zeros does this have? Maybe I should start with what is a zero? Good, so where it crosses the x-axis, so how many do you see? Really? You think that's a bounce? Okay. I drew it as on my paper, I really drew it as a cross. Okay, so do you remember how to find the intercepts on the calculator? Trace. So we got to hit second, trace, and we're finding the zero. I'm going to start with the left one. So we got to go to the left. In this case, it's going to take us above the x-axis. So you hit enter. And then go to the right and hit enter. And I got like negative 11.65. So just so you guys know, in AP calculus, they always ask you to round to 3 decimals. So that will be a consistent thing. Anytime we're rounding, 3 decimals. Okay, so the second one, second trace, number 2. I really think it goes up, you guys. I'm going to say right bounds. See, I think it's above right there. I think it's negative 4.06.
Why did I get the same for you?
You got what? Maybe you got the over one. You got positive? Okay, so I think the other one is positive 0.406. Okay, I'm going to show you a trick you get. Okay, I'll do this other one, but I'm going to show you how to do this on the Inspire. Oops, I didn't get it. Oops.
There's 3. I didn't count the one on the far left. So it's negative 11 and then negative 24
and wait, I think, no, sorry, I think it's 1 point. The calculator told me 1. Okay, good. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so do you see how that's hard to see? Like, we had a hard time finding those two. Okay, you can actually do this on the Inspire. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this on the Inspire. So grab the Inspire. Okay, so when you turn it on, you're going to hit menu, and we're going to go add calculator. So this is like your calculating window. Okay, so technically when you're finding a zero, you can solve this algebraic. Are we stuck on that? So hit menu and then calculator, the top number 1. You should be on the same thing. Uh-oh.
And then you go and then
Can't even get
add
into the calculation screen.
And then we add. What if I just? Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so the Inspire can solve an equation, right? Okay, so technically when we're finding a zero, we're taking the equation and setting it equal to 0. That's all the symbols. You're actually 84 has a book too. Okay, you guys ready? Okay, so we're gonna solve. So hit menu. Okay, we're gonna do algebra, and we're gonna solve an equation. Okay, and then we're gonna type in the equation that we're gonna solve. So we're gonna type in negative 0.2 x. So the x is down on the bottom with all the letters. The caret is over on the far left to get to your exponents. And then you got to arrow out of your exponent before you keep typing. So plus 12. Delete is under menu. Plus 1.6x plus 1. Okay, so remember we're solving an equation, so it needs to be written as an equation. So I need to say equals. What does it set equal to? Not y. 0. We're finding a 0. That's when the y is equal to 0. Okay, now before you hit enter, don't hit enter yet. Okay, the calculator has to know what you're solving for. Okay, so once you have your equation, you're then going to type, I'm going to solve for x, so you have to write comma x. So the comma is like right below the pi on the far bottom left. So comma x. Oh, I did not get the right answer. Oh, don't look at my answer because I wrote 12 instead of 2.2. Okay. You probably were copying me. I don't know where I got 12 from. Oh, I was doing the next equation. So I'm going to write in, it was supposed to be 2.2, right?
Yeah.
2.2. There we go. So, how come it only, did you guys get 3 answers when you did that?
Yeah.
Why did I not get 3 answers? Okay, but you got the 3 answers that we got when we graphed. My mode must have something wrong with it. I don't know why it's not. I should have got 3 answers. Okay, good. So your calculator is in the right mode. Mine is messed up. You only got 11?
Yeah.
Okay, we got to figure out why that's happening.
I don't know what I know. I'm just going to calculate.
Okay. I'll figure it out. And if it's, I'll give you a new one that gets through it.
Just put the reset button on the back.
You could try. I don't know. Okay, so let's try question number 13. You guys ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, so question number 13 says we're going to find the points of intersection. Okay, so we're going to graph a John Travolta, and what is this second equation? 3x minus y plus 5. What is that shape? Right. Okay, so we have something like the shape of this kind of looks like this, and then like this. Okay, so how many intersections are we finding? There's 3 intersections. Okay, so all we're going to do is, in order to do this, how do you figure out where 2 lines intersect algebraically?
Oh, Brady only got one.
Okay, we got to check those calculators.
I reset mine, so I'll let you know how it works.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so algebraically, how do we solve equations? That would work. Okay, but if it says write the equation you are solving, how do we do that? So you're trying to figure out when the x and the y are the same. You set them equal to each other. So, but you have to make sure that both are y equals, right? Okay, so this one does say y equals. I need this one to say y equals. So can we just add the y to the other side and say that's 3x plus 5? So the equation that we're going to type in is going to be negative x cubed plus 12x squared plus 9x minus 3 equals 3x plus 5. So that's what we're going to type into our Inspire. Okay, so if I'm solving, what am I going to type on the Inspire? So solve. Yep. To solve. And it goes, so it goes negative x cubed plus 12x squared plus 9x minus 3 equals
Okay. So if you reset it, it does do
3. It does?
the